Hi, I'm Scott Bryan, the editor of the Hickory Daily Record, and with me is District Attorney Jay Gaither. Last week we invited both Mr. Gaither and his opponent David Learner for a debate here in the conference room, a back and forth where they would be able to talk and debate instead of 2-minute sound bites. Unfortunately, Mr. Learner declined the opportunity to debate. In our letter to both candidates, we told them that if one person declined, we would do a video with the other person, allowing them to have the opportunity, since they were willing to debate, to speak to our readers online. And so that's what we're doing here today. Unfortunately, Mr. Learner decided not to participate in the debate. He has his own reasons, but we'll move forward. I want to thank Mr. Gaither for joining us. Certainly appreciate him taking time. Before we get started, you mentioned obviously you came here from Newton this morning.
Correct.
Tell me
Scott.
a little bit about what you experienced this morning.
Well, not only you, but also addressing those who are watching on the video. We want to, from the District Attorney's Office, extend our deepest expressions of sadness and loss to the family of Maggie Daniels. She was certainly a person that was respected in the school by the students, by the teachers, by the community, and this is a tragic loss. And I can only imagine what they must be feeling in her home in Ohio, and our hearts go out to her family, and we're just tremendously saddened by this. And the Newton Police Department, the State Bureau of Investigation, you can be assured, are doing the usual excellent job that you expect and I expected them, and that's all I can say about it. But we're working hard, and I'm sorry I haven't had time to do more preparation, but this has been consuming most of my time, and I'll do my best to answer your questions as well as possible.
Not a problem. I appreciate it. Obviously, late last week there was a lawsuit filed in federal court, and I know you've spoken extensively about it here over the last few days.
Right.
I guess in general, looking at it now, having had the time to review the suit and having been asked probably every question you could be
Right.
asked in the last few days from the media, I guess what are your thoughts on that suit moving forward?
Well, I'm disappointed. It's unfortunate. I remember back when there was just a single day election, they used to call it the Thursday surprise, and now that we have early election, I guess it's the week before early election surprise. I think the timing speaks for itself. Naturally, I had to make a choice as to whether or not to defend against this frivolous and baseless suit or to continue to politic. I don't have the time to do both, and I'm going to try to continue to put most of my efforts into running for re-election. Now, of course, we have a full-blown investigation into the death of Maggie Daniels, and the job always comes first. So not only do I have the election to concern myself, but I've put that aside for now. And other than this pre-scheduled debate, I'm focused mostly on helping the Newton Police Department and the State Bureau of Investigation in that homicide investigation.
Obviously, and I appreciate your answering that. Moving forward, one thing that a lot of people have talked about here in this campaign, in this political race, has been a trial that you were obviously heavily involved in, or a case that you were heavily involved in with Zara Baker, the death of Zara and her mother.
Right.
There's been a lot of criticism from your opponent that he was not involved in the case. I don't know how he would have been involved in the case if he was not a defense attorney and Catawba not working prosecutorial as well. But one thing that he said repeatedly is he's stressed the plea bargains, and when we asked him a couple months ago, what he would have done differently in the Zara Baker case, the only thing that he was able to respond with was that he would have used snitches to build a better case. I guess I don't know if you've ever had an opportunity to respond to that, but I mean that was the only thing that he brought forward was that he would use snitches. I mean,
sure.
Are you confident in what you did with the Zara Baker case? Is there anything that could have been done differently?
It's one of the reasons I wish that Mr. Learner had shown up today and had chosen to debate rather than ducking the debate, is that we could have gotten into more of a vigorous and open discussion about this extremely important case. And I think that Mr. Learner, being an attorney and having some experience with the courts, knows that he is deceiving the public when he attempts to exploit things like the Zara Baker case. Any person who's in the legal community knows that what he is saying is not true. But more importantly, I believe that the community remembers that there was a Team Zara. And when you have a case like this, much as the current case that's going on in Newton, one individual does not make the decisions. I do not make the decisions by myself. Ultimately, I have to make a decision. And if there's conflict, then that becomes an important decision that I make when I digress or diverge from maybe the majority opinion or a split opinion. Teams R work together, and there was not a divergence of opinion. So when criticism is directed towards me individually regarding the decisions that were made and how to prosecute Lisa Baker, they are really directed towards the Hickory Police Department, the State Bureau of Investigation, all the people that made up the Teams R. Now, to speak to the case itself for a minute, I would challenge Mr. Lerner or anybody in the entire country to tell me of a case where you have no body, no particular motive, no cause of death, no instrumentality of death, so that we don't even know to this day how it was that Zara Baker, in fact, was killed. If you take all those factors and show me a single case where you've gotten a conviction, much less a conviction where somebody is sentenced to 18.5 years and then another 10 years beyond that, we're talking about one of the most significantly successful convictions ever for this type of case. And we remember the case down in Florida that ended up in a not guilty. There was a similar case in North Carolina just about 2 years ago where a child was killed, and there were two parents, one a step parent, the other was the natural parent. Once again, they went for first degree in that case. It was a not guilty. Pursuing first degree in a case where you don't have the evidence to be successful, when you overreach, there are simply hundreds and hundreds of examples. And I'm here to achieve justice, not necessarily to grandstand on the front page of your paper. That's not my job. My job is to go into the courts and get the best results I can. And I think some people like to grandstand. That's just simply not the way I do my job.
You mentioned the courts there toward the end, and one thing, another criticism we heard from both your opponents in the first primary was the lack of court time and not using court time appropriately. Evan Matsumoto, our reporter, went back and looked at the court logs for the entire year of 2013 and I believe the first 2 months of 2014, and found that usually it was around 80%, I want to say, of the court time was used. Judges, of course, as we all know, tend to cut out early on Fridays, but there was this criticism that you weren't using the courtroom time, but on average it was something like 80% or 78%. Are you happy with what you're able to do in the courtroom and what the district attorney's office is able to do in the courtroom?
Well, once again, also, I'd like to talk about when you say, are you happy with what you're able to do in the courtroom? One of the things that I'd also like to talk to Mr. Lerner about in an open debate is criticism that's in a vacuum. By that, I mean, if you're going to criticize the DA's office, you need to compare it to either past performance, district attorneys before me, or other districts that are similarly situated. Naturally, nobody is happy when you have 3,500 cases and you can only try maybe 100 of them. So I would like to be able to try all the cases that I want to try. I would like to have all the resources, but who wouldn't? You would, everybody in business would. I am satisfied that we are working hard to maximize the resources that we have. I think one thing that occurred during that week where that criticism came out was I took some steps that I usually don't take in order to illustrate to your paper and to the public just how much control a judge has over these matters. I think that that was the week coming up to the primary, fairly close to it, and the judge informed us that they had the intention of leaving on that Thursday. Typically speaking, we would just simply say, yes, Your Honor, we understand that if we call a case, it's not going to be heard. But I didn't want to disrespect the court. I didn't want to disrespect the judge, but I went back in her chambers and I told her, Your Honor, in order to be able to illustrate to the newspaper that we're not ducking court, we're going to have to call this case on Thursday morning. We called the case on Thursday morning. She said, Mr. District Attorney, I'm not going to be able to hear that case. I'm leaving in about an hour or two. What else do you have for the court? We brought a couple pleas in. We did what we could do. Lots of the times when court folds early, it's because the judge wants to leave. The other reason, though, is that we have 4 courtrooms in Newton, only one of which is dedicated to criminal superior. So that every Monday we have a new call of calendar. So when you come up on a Thursday or Friday, you're not really in a position to call for trial another case because it would have to go over into the next week. So unless it's a murder case or a case that we know is going to take several weeks, we pretty much have to target our main business and get it done in a week. To sort of strengthen the argument that we're doing the best we can, the county commissioners have tested the waters with the public. They have a bond out there that is raising money, and they've already broken ground and are currently expanding our current courtroom space. We'll soon have additional courts, and in my opinion, and I think most of people's opinions who are in and around the justice system, you need a couple empty courts, just like you need a little extra room to do manufacturing. Every once in a while, you're going to hit that 100% mark, and you need to be able to go over to an empty court. So there needs to be a certain amount of flexibility there. And right now, there's zero. We're using everything as much as we can and as efficiently as we can do. That's why the county commissioners have opted to expand the courts.
What are you most proud of as your time as district attorney?
Well, in 11 years, there have been a lot of downs and a lot of ups. There's been a lot of tragic situations that we've done our best in. So, are you most satisfied and pleased with the success stories, or am I most satisfied with dealing with those situations that apparently at first glance are going to be disasters, but we salvage out as much as we can, like the Zara Baker case. The way we handled Zara Baker, the way we handled Lisa Baker, so many people thought that this was going to be something where the entire national legal community would look at us and say, wow, y'all just don't know how to do things, or you look like a bunch of stupid hicks over there in Hickory. In fact, that didn't happen, and I received multiple calls that said the way we handled ourselves, the way we comported ourselves with dignity, the way we went through that process, and most of the community at large, if you get outside of the greater Hickory area, are highly approve of it. Nancy Grace, for example, usually beats up on people after the results of the case, and you don't hear any criticism of the way we handled the case from people like Nancy Grace and other legal experts. I would point back to early on in my career as your district attorney when I helped pass Rachel's Law. I drafted it and pushed it forward and increased the penalties for shooting into homes and into cars. I think that that's made a big difference in people's lives just across the state, not just here. And since then, I've worked with legislators to improve our state's laws. Being appointed by Pat McCrory to the Governor's Crime Commission was something that I'm very humbled by. I really respect Pat McCrory. I think he's trying to do his best. Not everybody agrees with what he does, but he doesn't necessarily agree with the legislature, and the legislature doesn't necessarily agree with him. So it's not like we have, folks that are all cozy down there. And I like to see government that a little bit of friction and trying to do the best they can. The low crime rates, I can't say that those are all something that have accrued as a result of my work, but certainly putting away habitual felons and going aggressively against drunk drivers and child molesters, along with the cooperation that I built with law enforcement. So I can't really say that there's one thing. There's plenty of young people that I see now that have families that 10, 11 years later, after having gotten a dust up in the court system, when I see them out in the community or they write me a letter, some veteran writes me a letter and says, hey, 10 years ago you helped me out, and now I'm married. I got out of the military with decorations. I'm married. My children are 4 and 5 years old. You can't help but feel good and feel like you're doing good. So it's a complex job with a lot of broad reach, and I guess I feel satisfaction also with the staff that I've hired and seeing how they're doing their work. So just in general, Scott, it's one of those things where you never really get to the point where you feel like you've accomplished what you should accomplish in a day. Every single day as a prosecutor, you feel like there's something left on the table. So it's one of those jobs that you get up and just have to go at it again every day. So satisfaction's it's relative, I guess, to the job.
Last question, obviously going forward, if you win July 15th, what do you hope to accomplish in the next term as district attorney?
Well, that's a great question. Whenever you're looking forward and you're wanting to make changes, and having done it for 11 years, you reach a certain level of satisfaction. Getting involved in the Veterans Court has been something great for me. We call it a Veterans Program because it's one of the few that are funded into the District Attorney's Office. And it sort of opened my eyes to some things that I have not heretofore focused on. Goodwill and CVCC are doing their best to try to help out with people that are in trouble and are wanting to get themselves out of the system and wanting to lift themselves up by their bootstraps. And so focusing on their efforts and helping them to help people help themselves, I think, is a big part of my next term. But probably the number one thing I'd like to see happen is to see the public safety aspect of Catawba, Burke, and Caldwell featured more in our economic incentives to businesses, so that when we're going out and we're wanting to attract industry to this area, I think we need to put that out there, that not only is this a beautiful place to live, not only is there a great workforce here, road access, We've got beautiful Lake Hickory surrounding the entire county. There's not another county in the state that I know that has a lake that surrounds it, like Lake Hickory and Lake Norman does in Long Island. We've got Blowing Rock to the north of us. We've got Asheville 45 minutes to an hour to the west of us. We've got Charlotte and all the great abilities to get in and out. But we are sitting here in this nice little safe enclave surrounded by all this great opportunities, the mountains, the rivers, the lakes. And so we have so much going for us here, and I feel that we're being lifted right now. As they say, a high tide raises all ships. And so I think Hickory in the greater area is doing well. But I'd like to see our county commissioners in all three counties and our city councilmen take note of the fact that we have low crime rates, that these are safe areas, and that companies who are shopping around and looking, and I don't want to name my sister cities that don't have the same level of public safety we have, but we know who they are. And they're fighting and they're competing with us, as is South Carolina, as is Georgia. I think we need to focus on that and bring our sheriffs in, bring our DA in, and let us be part of that future of the economy of the area.
Super. Thank you. I want to thank everybody for watching. Appreciate Mr. Gaither joining us, and of course you can read continuing coverage of the district attorney's race in the Hickory Daily Record and online at hickoryrecord.com. Thank you again for watching and viewing.